Welcome to episode 55 of Cyclops Is Waiting for Me, an X-Men the Animated Series weekly recap podcast. I'm JC, and I love doing introductions twice.
Yeah, and I'm Rod, and I do not. It gets me kind of stressed. Today, after months of planning, we have our most anticipated guest, Joe Schlepsky. That's definitely not the second time I made that joke today.
But you've been waiting for it for so long,
I know.
Rod, so it's, you know.
He couldn't not put it in there.
He had to do it.
I've been planning.
He's been teasing it for weeks. I've heard. I listened to the show. Big fan. Thanks for having me.
In all seriousness, our guest, Joe Russo.
Thank you. Thank you, guys. Yes, my name is Joe Russo, and I'm a big fan of Marvel.
We'll breadcrumb it after the episode.
I was supposed to be on the show months ago, but I was not able to attend because I had to go to a screening of a movie I produced called The Greatest Beer Run Ever.
Oh, wait.
Yeah.
I have heard of that.
I told you that.
No,
I literally told you that.
No, we talked about that because I have another friend that has something to do with it.
Really?
I forget how. Maybe they licensed I'm going to get this wrong, but they had something to do with it.
Oh, cool.
You both posted about it.
But we pride ourselves on accuracy here.
That's right.
All right.
Yes.
Especially me.
I know you know all the characters' names, Rod, backwards and forwards.
He fucking loves Maverick.
I am really sad, though, that I didn't get to be on the episode where you talked about Quicksilver pooping the whole time. I was, I lamented to John and, I really missed out on not being on that episode.
I lamented being on the episode.
See, there you could have swapped. In another timeline, there was...
You know what? I wish, because there was nothing more that I want to do than talk about poop in front of John Carl.
It's a lifelong goal. Everyone tweeted John your favorite poop story.
Nope. Let's not tweet that.
The John Carl.
Cool. Thanks.
Cyclops is waiting for me. Wait, are we supposed to do more of an intro for you?
No, it's fine. It's fine. We have 4 intros to do with him. We've already done 2.
Yeah. Cyclops is waiting for me, so technically 5. Is our weekly podcast series where we're going back and watching every single episode of the original 1992 X-Men the Animated Series in their original intended script order, building up to the release of X-Men 97 coming Disney Plus hopefully this year. Still haven't heard any updates.
Some quick reminders. We're a recap show about a series that came out now over 30 years ago. There are going to be spoilers, and if you don't want to spoil for you, pause the podcast, watch the episode, and come back, and we will do our best to avoid mentioning anything about future episodes we haven't yet covered. Joe, do you watch the episodes and then listen, or do you just listen to the podcast?
I'm one of the psychos who's only been listening to the podcast.
Perfect. Sorry, Disney, but we're not affiliated with you or Disney Plus in any way, so...
I don't believe you guys. Val protests too much. I think you are affiliated with Disney.
And we're just not giving our proper FTC disclosures.
That's right. They have little satellite things, and you're one of them. That's my thought. It's my conspiracy theory.
Total is shills.
Yep.
Yes.
Shills.
They love hearing people talk about Quicksilver shitting.
The funny part is I would totally be a Marvel Disney shill. Because I love it. Anyway, don't forget to follow us on social media. Speaking of being a shill, social media at Cyclops IWFM Pod on Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, and Facebook. Of course, make sure to follow us on all your favorite podcast services. Finally, we record these episodes in batches, like the next 3 or 4 you're going to hear right now. Reacting to any news about the upcoming series will be way behind.
We have no news on there's been nothing since our last session.
Yeah, we can make up stuff when we talk about that.
Yeah, I mean, that's what half of the internet is doing.
I mean, we have Joe Russo here talking about the X-Men.
That's true. So. You have Joe Russo on your podcast talking about the X-Men.
Well, we know what our SEO is going to be for these episodes. On to the show. Today, we're going to be talking about Season 4, Episode 18, titled Beyond Good and Evil, Part 1, The End of Time. It aired on November 4th, 1995, and currently sits at a 8.1 star rating on IMDb. The part that I thought was interesting before we get into anything about the episode itself, the subtitles only are online. They are not actually on the intro to the show.
Wait.
If you're actually watching the show, it just says Beyond Good and Evil, Part 1.
Oh, yeah. Okay, gotcha. Yeah. I didn't get the only reason I saw the subtitle part was because of the spreadsheet you made.
Yes. A lot of things that Rod learns about our show is because of the spreadsheet.
Oh, yeah.
Well, it's good that you do your job as a producer.
Hopefully this isn't a spoiler. Am I mistaken that... Was this originally the series finale?
That is not a spoiler. That is something that we were going to talk about from the book, actually.
Because I vaguely... Once I started rewatching this, I vaguely remember watching this not in real time, but maybe in college, and thinking this is how the series ended. That was a jinx on the 5th season.
Yeah. I saw that on the Wikipedia, but I think when I was a child, I don't recall ever thinking this was the end.
Well, because they were doing the writing through the scripts, and it was during the writing process that they found out it was going to get more episodes.
Yeah.
So they never promoted it as the finale.
Well, that's good. good because that actually, well, when we get to part 4, we can talk about it then. But
7 hours from now.
I have thoughts on the end.
This is one of the episodes that kicks off with a recap, and it's basically all the shit we've learned about Apocalypse up until this point. Hopping into the episode, starts off Cairo, wow, I'm having a fucking stroke.
3,000.
Yeah, 3,999 AD, and it's in a futuristic city. It doesn't feel that futuristic by comparison, though.
Yeah, one of my notes was like, oh, there's still a forest. That's good.
Well, they're also in Cairo, you know. I mean, it kind of looks like Arizona with a couple buildings.
There's your tweet for the week.
Joe has spent some time in Arizona.
That's true. I used to live there. You know,
Wow.
they didn't.
It's so hot.
It is. I always kind of thought of it as like reverse winter, you know?
Jeez.
Like you stay inside during the summer and you go out during the winter, right? That's how I survived. Lots of air conditioning and a pool.
So we see Cable, who has a red eye, which we've talked about in previous episodes. Depending on who's animating it, they give him a different color eye, which is weird to me.
Before, when I was a kid, I used to assume that meant like good guys and bad guys, you know?
Yeah, no, that's definitely not the case on this one. But
That is something I would not have known only listening to your recap show.
no, like normally he's supposed to have like a yellow eye or white. But when there's one episode where it was blue and then this one being red, whatever, Saban didn't really care about quality control. So
Can I ask a question?
never.
Why does Cable's son also have a mechanical arm?
So they don't really address the mechanical arm at all in the series. The arm is because of the techno-organic virus,
Right.
and it's how the computer helps him keep it under control.
Why would that pass on to his son?
It shouldn't.
He's like the future equivalent of like a drug baby. Like you just inherit the same addictions or something.
I guess so, right? Yeah.
Let's really not worry about what happened to the mom in that case then.
Oh my word, yeah.
Oh dear.
It's probably Mystique. That's what I've learned at this point.
No, it's not Mystique.
She would have to be time traveling Mystique. It's 3,999.
But isn't that what she's doing in this episode?
Boy, spoilers.
So Cable's running through the woods and they are approaching this big, giant apocalypse face pyramid. He then proceeds to give a speech to his son, Tyler, which all these characters have like crazy names and just is weird to me that his son is just named Tyler.
Well, there's also a guy later in the episode named George, but you know.
He has a prefix though, right? He's gorgeous.
He's gorgeous, George.
Well, but they just call him. They're just like George. Anyway, we'll get to George.
Cable looks like a guy that would name his kid Tyler in the future.
Yeah, I also liked how Cable's in this break-in is like, be very, very quiet, and then they bring this robot that's like, like.
Yep. So we're gonna play our favorite game. Rod, the rest of the group, what are their names?
My notes literally say Cable scoping out Apocalypse's super subtle pyramid with Tyler and 3 other random people.
Okay. It's three people and a robot. So we have Boak, Boak, is the robot. Garrison Kane, Dawn Silk, and Hope.
I knew none of those.
Hope
It is not Hope Summers.
Oh, interesting.
Yes.
That would have made sense, but she didn't exist yet in the
Correct.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, that was
Right.
more than a decade before she would exist within the comics.
Okay.
Yep.
There you go.
He gives a speech to Tyler about how they've been putting up with Apocalypse for 5,000 years and it needs to end. Start climbing up the cliff, opens the door. They say the phrase that is the equivalent of watch your ass, watch your backside, because it is a kid's cartoon. And then they start to split up down the halls. And Cable is looking specifically for the Lazarus Chamber.
And they haven't called it that yet, right? Or did he?
That's the first time we've heard it, I believe.
Yeah.
He uses his computer, which has a different voice than the last time we saw a computer. Because the last time was the same voice actor as the Sentinels, I want to say.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Interesting.
Right.
They probably weren't expecting to like keep like a continuity of characters with the computer.
It's also several years later.
Yeah.
And then it analyzes this door. They use the snake glyph, which I feel like he could have just seen it was sticking out compared to the rest of the door.
Yeah, well, it's like, have you seen that meme of frame of a Scooby-Doo cartoon with a brick wall and then one set of bricks is highlighted? It's like, I wonder which part of the wall the animators want us to push on.
There's another bit like this later in the episode too, but yes, I agree. It's the most obvious button to press.
And then we get the pop culture reference, super timely, of I hate snakes.
Yes.
I did get that one. Indiana Jones.
14 years later. Nothing like a good 14-year-old reference to stick in a kid's show.
I have to keep remembering it because I think this is happening with media now or probably all time, but it's always like the previous generation's references, right? Because
That's
they're
true.
the ones making
That's
the media.
the writers, yeah.
Yeah. So for like the writers, that was like
To be fair, though, I can't go back to when I was 10 years old and tell you how I felt when I heard that line, but I could assume that I at least recognized it because I had watched Indiana Jones fairly recently.
I feel like you were one of the ones who definitely got that in our age group.
Cackled, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's like, oh, he's like Indiana Jones.
I, too, Rod, prefer a good pun. And I can't wait to make some over the course of the next several hours with JC.
Oh, I can't
The
wait.
best part is I don't, but he hates it so much it resets the scale.
Yes.
Of like this conversation.
Again, I wish this was a video show just so you could see my reactions to some of this shit.
His face is pretty priceless. I will say one of the reasons why I wanted to come on this particular 4 batch of episode run was not just to hijack your show, John. It was because Apocalypse...
There's something about the name Joe.
Yeah, it was something about, it's because Apocalypse is my favorite X-Men bad guy. And I really wanted to come on for an Apocalypse episode. This particular, you already said we're spoiling the thing, so we're spoiling the thing. This particular run of episodes, I always loved because it dealt with all of the things I liked about the X-Men animated series, right? It's literally got Apocalypse, it's got Mr. Sinister, it's got Magneto, it's got time travel, it's got Cable, it's got Bishop. I mean, it's literally, it is, I realized this when I rewatched it the other night, it's the Batman the movie of the X-Men the animated series.
I could totally see that.
I think
Batman the movie was the one with all of the villains.
Mask of the Phantasm?
No. Batman the movie was with Adam West.
Oh,
yeah.
Oh, okay. We're not talking animated.
No,
Okay,
we're
got
talking
it.
about
That's why I was a
Batman
little
the
confused.
movie.
Okay, got it.
Batman the movie was the one where he had to fight all of the rogues galleries of villains. And that's what this is. And I'm like, this is like the mega episode. So I'm really glad to be here.
I do feel bad. We never get to see Pyro and Avalanche in this episode, though.
Oh, I
Were
totally
we
forgot about
supposed
them.
to see?
No,
They're
but you
just-
see, it's like everybody's favorites, and that actually makes it very true that it's like we left out Blob, we left out Pyro,
That's
and we
true.
left out Avalanche.
Yeah, that's true.
And I'm okay with that.
Fine.
Yeah.
It doesn't have everyone, but it has almost everyone.
No, but to your point though, and Eric Lewald talks about that in making of an animated series, that it is everybody's in there, and it's like, yeah, except for those guys, because nobody really misses them.
Oh.
He doesn't say that, but I think we can infer
And I
that.
think that was the sense that I got of like, oh, we're wrapping things up.
Yeah, because it's like it's a little bit of everything that they've done over the course of the whole couple of years. You know,
Just like a little teaser of a later conversation in another episode. I love there was a comment of like one of the characters in show Meta saying like, is this a sci-fi convention?
yeah,
Because like everyone's there.
it's true. Yeah,
So continuing down the hallway after opening the snake door, Cable hits a tripwire, which a wall pops down, separates him from the group, and Apocalypse appears in giant form. We see that, Apocalypse knew he was coming. It's like, all right, well, did you, you weren't really hiding, I feel like, so.
Apocalypse does this a lot where like he has foreseen something and like been there waiting. And any number, X-Men, X-Force, X-Pac, any of the X groups and stuff, never learn from that.
no,
They always think they've outsmarted Apocalypse.
They also normally don't do anything with the villains. It's usually third parties who are the ones that lock up the villains.
Uh-huh.
The episode with Cyclops where they get small town justice on the dude who took over. They really don't put people into prisons, which I feel like they should.
Yeah, especially like in Apocalypse.
well, how do you put Apocalypse into a prison?
Kill him.
Yeah, so,
The ultimate prison.
right, yeah.
Well, I guess that's what Cable's trying to
Which
do.
is what he's trying to do.
Yeah.
So
It just took 5,000 years to make it happen.
yeah. Well, back to that.
But Apocalypse, like Rod said, he's planned for this. He knew it was happening, and he takes Cable's computer because it's the one thing he's been lacking: the passport to the dimension of time. He could have just said time travel.
Yeah.
It sounds much more ominous and much more Apocalypse.
Yeah.
He's a Shakespearean fan.
Yes. Yes.
Shakespeare. I said that
That's
wrong.
right.
You know what I mean?
Shakespearean fans fine.
Beast.
On the other side, the group is trying to get in. They're having
Not very effective.
no success, despite
No.
the amount of mutant powers and lasers and
Yes.
stuff like that.
Amazingly, though, as soon as Apocalypse leaves, they're able to break through right then and there.
They had to wear it down.
Yeah,
it was,
yeah.
it was really
Sure.
quick erosion.
Yeah.
I think that what made me think there was it was so thick that there was 2 layers to get through because Apocalypse, blasts through one part, but it doesn't go all the way through.
Right.
And then bit of time later is when they were able to get through this stuff.
Okay, all right.
But also story.
I was just going to say convenience.
Yeah,
Story
no, it's weird.
convenience. But
a lot
I
of-
like
there's-
you're giving
Optimism?
them the benefit of the doubt.
There's a
on,
lot.
and I love that.
There's a lot of story optimism in this. We'll get to it when we start figuring out what's happening.
This fucking show cooks, man. It moves. It moves.
It really does. There's a little back and forth with Cable and Apocalypse, and he talks about, the world won't stomach your evil. And Apocalypse doesn't consider himself evil, which
No. which is why I like him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting here because he actually doesn't talk at all about survival of the fittest, which was the crux of the character for so long.
Well,
and
he's
now
also had a couple thousand years to think on it too.
Yeah, this is the more mature one who doesn't believe in survival of the fittest anymore.
He survived.
Yeah.
Went from survival of the fittest to eugenics. He started a podcast with Sinister. He got convinced.
There you go.
Ends up making Apocalypse almost question himself of what if he can't win. And he compares himself to Sisyphus and the eternal struggle of that mythological character. And he says, I'm doomed to struggle with the filth. While he's having this own like internal crisis, he totally shit talks, and it's fantastic.
I also love that Cable's just literally just standing there listening to him monologue.
I mean, I would probably be in shock too, because like Apocalypse is having his version of Wolverine Cyclops Is Waiting for Me moment. He's usually like pretty like, you know, on top of things, but now he's like just sad. He's like,
Yeah.
oh, what if all this was for nothing?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
After 5,000 years, he finally experiences sadness.
Yeah.
It's a new emotion for him.
Yeah. He's like, I haven't been winning. I've been losing for 5,000 years.
At that point, Cable does try to nut up and shoot him in the back. It's finally
Yeah.
like, oh, I should do something.
He let him get it all out.
Yeah.
It was like a therapy session.
Yeah, and then unfortunately, Apocalypse teleports away.
But very silently.
Yes. Yes.
Because Cable like shoots it. Where'd he go?
We go into a flashback, and it's in black and white, so it's very obviously a flashback.
Yes, it is.
Definitely not a cost-cutting measure.
And by the way, I knew exactly what episode it was because I had just listened to your show.
Nice.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, the timing on these airing in script order is actually beneficial in this case.
Right.
So it goes back to the One Man's Worth episode, which takes place in May 11th of 1959. And you get Fitzroy, who is draining Professor X. You see them start teleporting back and forth through time. Bishop leaves. And then we actually get the continuation of Bishop's story there because we never knew. And in a lot of the Bishop episodes, when he thinks he succeeded or fails, he goes back to his time.
He always
and
finds out he fucked up.
Yeah. It's like, maybe you just should give up. But he returns back to Forge's lab in 2055 and he sees his sister Shard, but he's kind of caught in that time stream portal.
And she sees him.
Yeah.
Like,
Right.
super like disturbing.
They're like, oh, well, we should probably try to get him out of here. Before they could do anything with that, he ends up getting shot back into the time stream. And when he's in the time stream, it's like just a really shitty LA driver who just like cuts you off on the highway.
Yeah, like what happens out on the road in front of your place every
Constantly.
time I come over here.
And it throws Bishop off. And that's where we meet Bender.
The best X-Men character of all time.
So my description of him, Bishop runs into an annoying Robin Williams knockoff.
Like I said, the best X-Men character of all time. What you guys can't see is JC's tattoo of Bender on his arm.
And he extends all the way to the back and the front chest plate.
Yes.
So we'll do our best to not spoil future episodes, but I will say, like, because I had forgotten this character and the character's arc. Mm-hmm. And in the current Marvel MCU, it was like, is it? I literally like had that moment.
Is he Jonathan Majors? Is that what you're asking? That's just
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, you thought he was
it's kind of
Kang.
the same idea.
Yeah.
It's kind of Kang,
Oh,
right?
okay. I
Yeah.
didn't know about that.
Yeah.
So is Bender Kang?
We'll get into it.
Okay.
Gotcha.
But yeah.
This episode could also the whole 4 episodes could just be called Bishop's Really Long Walk.
Yeah, he's walking
For
for
4 episodes.
3.5. He finally stops walking halfway through the last one.
It's really in the last couple minutes.
Yeah.
though.
Okay.
It's like the X-Men's Mandalorian.
Yeah.
Because I hate a part of. Oh no, that's Boba Fett. I hate.
Well, I just mean like it's like a lot of walking in like a vaguely spaghetti western.
Right.
theme.
Yeah. That's true.
I do appreciate though that the little bit of justification for Bender being so annoying is that he's been in a place without time alone for
He says 10,000 years.
or more because he lost track.
Yeah.
So you go insane.
Yeah, makes sense.
I just don't want to see it.
It's just, it's a lot.
But it's a super like 90s thing, right? After the genie in Aladdin, everybody
Yes.
wanted that character.
Yes, he does feel like that. Which is why
That's why I wish we had a video of you right now.
which is why JC has him tattooed on his back.
Went from my arm to my back.
It's
He
all the
moves.
whole thing.
Yeah.
It's on your arms, your back. It's like a
It moves like Rorschach's mask from
Yeah.
Watchmen.
Uh-huh.
No. So Bender, who is the
Wish they could see it.
who is the custodian of the axis of time, and it's just kind of like I equated it to like a very boring rainbow bridge from Thor.
Pretty much.
It's just like
Yeah.
a light bridge that's going towards this big center area.
Yeah, by the way, like, there's no real mystery for Bishop to figure out. It's just like, walk towards the thing in front of you.
Yeah. You walk towards nothingness or thing.
Yeah.
And also all the other roads that he sees in his immediate vision are going towards the one thing.
Yes.
He's
yes.
walking towards.
Yeah. It's like, well, I guess I'm going there.
Yeah.
See you in 3 episodes.
In one of the frames, you start to see New York City. And at the time, in their mid-90s, it had the iconic Twin Towers in it, too. Because it was like it was either you saw the Statue of Liberty or the Twin Towers, and that was how we knew it was New York City back then.
Yep.
And then it starts cutting into seeing Scott and Jean having their wedding. And
Finally.
well, at first again, because I hadn't watched this episode in easily a decade.
Yeah.
So I was like, is this a flashback to the first wedding or is this another wedding?
Yeah. And it is another wedding.
It is another wedding. And they help clarify that fairly quickly because you see them in the chapel and Morph is sitting in the seats next to the X-Men. So you knew he wasn't pretending to be the pastor this time.
Yeah, I had him in my notes. I was like, is that? I was hoping that was Morph.
It was
Oh,
Morph.
that's funny. I didn't even notice that.
In the row with the X-Men sitting, he was the last one there. So he didn't have a speaking role or anything
I don't
like
even
that.
think he moves. I think he was part of like the backdrop almost.
My favorite part of the wedding scene is when Wolverine cuts the cake, but the animation already has the outline
Yeah.
of where
Yes.
he's going to cut.
Same trope. Like I wonder which part the animators wanted us to move.
After threatening Scott.
Yes. Of course.
Yeah.
Naturally, as you should.
Oh, Scott deserves it, even on his wedding day.
Yeah.
He's usually yelling at
I
everybody.
will say that Crystal felt very badly. My wife, Crystal, when we watched this episode, felt very badly for Wolverine as he moped around watching Scott finally marry Jean.
But at least this time he didn't have to go through a danger room fight with a giant sentinel of Scott.
True.
So things keep looking up for him. The third wedding will be the
he's
charm.
making progress. Yeah.
They do a lot of the traditional stuff. Rogue catches the bouquet, which is super sad.
Yeah. That kind of like gets really brushed over very quickly.
But the spot with it was like, that is the perfect time for there to be a Gambit being creepy moment.
Absolutely.
And he doesn't do it.
But you know what? They got a lot of plot to get through. So.
They do.
It doesn't Rogue specifically say something like a lot of good this will do me or something?
Yeah.
I gotta ask you guys a question.
Please.
So, if you're Charles Xavier and you've had a life that you've had where you've had all these things happen to you with the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants and Apocalypse and Sinister and all these bad guys, and your mansion's been destroyed, I don't know how many times now in this show.
At least 3.
Yeah.
Why would you shut the security perimeter down?
I asked the same thing. It's
I mean, yeah, I know it's like an excuse, like, oh, we have to logically understand how the bad guys get in, but like,
For the same reason that they have never put Mystique in jail.
yes. Okay. They never, so basically Charles Xavier just never learns his lessons.
and
Yeah.
it's arguably like the time you need the most security because like it's all of the heroes, their friends, their family, innocent bystanders, 2 of the more powerful mutants, that have been kidnapped before the previous wedding.
Well, there you go. Sorry, I might have jumped ahead of your notes.
It's fine. It's fine.
I felt we needed to preface how stupid that was before you read the plot point.
So at the part you did skip over, which is not a big one, was Gambit adding the cans to the car, which was like TV trope in the 80s and 90s and probably earlier. We finally got rid of that because people didn't want cans fucking up their bumpers, I'm assuming.
Yeah, or just announcing to the world we're finally gonna fuck, or like we're gonna pretend that this is the first time.
Thank you, Rod.
Well, because I grew up in the church. That was usually like the signal, like, oh, they're getting away. We're like, why are we concentrating on this right now?
I got thoughts. I'm not going to get into them on the show. And then right before what Joe is referencing of how did they get through the security barrier, Storm proceeds to jinx everything by commenting about how smoothly everything went this time.
Hey, finally a wedding went right in the X-Men world.
That's like saying a wedding going right in pro wrestling. It literally is never meant to happen.
Although it has been a hot minute, at least a few seasons since Storm has had like a zinger, and so she doesn't have a zinger this one. She just literally just jinxes it.
Yeah.
Well,
That was early show. We were getting a lot of those of just like thoughtful Storm moments, and we just haven't had a lot of those at this point.
It's like because she's so well spoken, it doesn't immediately feel like an insult, and then you let it sink in. The words like, wait, Spore, but a couple things back, like when Jubilee, I think the first time was Jubilee was like, freaks like me are here, and Storm's like all of us, dear. Right, wait, and then same thing with Xavier. He was like, I failed, and she's like, we failed.
It's not as comforting as you think it is, Storm.
No, it's not.
Yep. At that point, the security being down becomes a pretty big deal because there's a flash of light, a loud scream, and then everybody's out cold.
I was super confused by that moment.
Yes, it was very clunky. I didn't know what was happening.
That's fair.
So I'm waiting for like your next couple of lines of description because I have a question possibly about what happened there.
So the next line is the Nasty Boys arrive.
Okay, which one of the Nasty Boys has that power?
The screaming?
No, just the flash.
To flash them into unconsciousness.
I think it's supposed to be Vertigo's power that knocks them out.
Okay, I think I was just confused. I'm used to seeing the waves come from her.
Yes, I think that's totally fair. But the knockout is Vertigo, similar to real life. Also, quick point. Vertigo was not previously a part of the Nasty Boys. Vertigo was a part of the Mutates in the Savage Land.
Oh, that's
so
right.
this is Vertigo's transition over to the not Savage Land team.
Yeah, and you don't mess with the one that came from outside the crew because whatever crazy shit they did to get accepted.
Well, we also later see that Vertigo is pretty pivotal to the larger plan that's going on too.
Yeah.
So Nasty Boys arrive. Everybody
Whose
ends up.
plan? Sorry.
I do like that was a genuine mystery, like at least his first episode.
Well,
Yeah.
To me, it
yes.
was.
Rod doesn't do any advanced research before it, and the goldfish memory combined really helps.
There you go.
When did you watch the episodes? Did you do it this morning?
No, I meant to rewatch them this morning. I watched them yesterday.
Okay, just
Yeah.
checking. So everybody gets taken out and dropped, and instead of just grabbing Gene and Scott, Slab picks up the car with them in it.
Naturally.
I mean, I guess it's easier because then you don't have to worry about two of them struggling or moving, but he's just like, fuck it, I'm going for the whole thing.
And he's a goon, so
Slab is like the ultimate good.
I also like how they just go a little further away before they teleport. Like, why not just teleport
Do it
away
there?
right there?
But they do address that though a little bit
Did
later.
they?
Yeah, kind of. We'll get there.
Well, so they open up the portal, and he literally just throws Jean like she's a football through
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Like, there was no concern about, like, oh, what if she, like, lands awkward and breaks her neck? It's like, nope, she's going through the portal.
So while I'm watching, I'm typing out my notes and stuff, and sometimes you kind of like anticipate what's going to happen. So I'm like typing in like, oh, they take Gene and then like back, they throw Gene.
Yes. Yep. And then they are all like, cool, we're out. And they leave Scott behind. And it's like, knowing the story of Sinister, something has to be different
Amiss.
because they literally are like, we don't need him this time.
Yeah. So no like semen extraction.
Excellent. I'm very happy that you said that because Sean, right now,
You get to see the video.
yes, yes, this is what I've been missing.
We will do one episode that will be a full video show. Professor X has regained his consciousness. He can't sense Jean anywhere. Basically splits everybody up, tells them to start searching, and then Jubilee has the awesome responsibility of getting rid of the guests.
Well,
I mean, I don't trust the 13-year-old, or at this point 14-year-old, we've decided, because it's been
Christmas,
it's been 1 year.
my wife was like, I don't remember Jubilee from any of the movies. And I was like, well, that's because she's not really in them.
Funny story.
She's not
Yeah.
until Apocalypse,
Yeah,
Yeah.
but I don't think she saw that one.
But-
to be in my wife's defense,
nor should
But
she.
I was like, she is the most '90s X-Men character ever.
Yes.
Her powers are fireworks.
That's basically yes.
So Apocalypse, though, if you remember, like there was this anticipation for Jubilee's finally going to get justice because she was in all the promo material. Like
And she's in it for 35 seconds.
yeah, if that.
Yeah, she kind of disappears after this, huh?
Oh, in this show, yeah.
Oh, no, he's talking about in the movie,
in
the
the movie.
anticipation for her.
Oh, I see. I'm
Oh
sorry.
yeah, no. So in the promo material for the Apocalypse movie,
Oh, yeah.
they had like these little like VHS PSAs and stuff with starring Jubilee. So we're like,
Oh,
oh,
wow.
Jubilee's finally going to be in it.
Huh.
She'd been recast every single movie,
Right.
and we're like, she's finally going to be in it. And then yeah, she's just
Yeah,
like
no.
a passing
Well,
reference.
that movie was. We don't talk about
all
that
of,
movie.
all of
I
it.
can't wait to do the episode about that movie just because the hate Rod will give is amazing.
I
for
will.
all
I
of
will
the
say,
movies.
as a fan of Apocalypse, as someone who the first like big comic book crossover event when I read was Age of Apocalypse.
Yep.
That movie was very disappointing.
I think I said this on a previous podcast, but that is one of the only movies I've ever fallen asleep in a theater during.
Wow.
I fell asleep for about
that.
10 minutes in like right before the big fight. And I
Yeah.
think it was just because something was very loud is the only reason I woke up.
because someone laughed.
Nobody laughed.
Because that was
There was no emotion tied to that movie.
Because that was me with Dark Phoenix, the last Fox X-Men movie.
Yeah.
I mean, that was so bad. Someone like, when,
New Mutants was the final Fox X-Men movie.
That's true.
was that X-Men?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Jesus
Interesting.
Christ, Rod.
Host of the X-Men show doesn't know that New Mutants was.
I knew there were X-Men
Put,
in it.
put that on the TikToky, huh?
I'm here to learn.
So they catch up to Cyclops. Wolverine says that he could smell them, but he can't track them. So obviously they know something is amiss. Professor's using Cerebro, can't find Jean, but has noticed that there's a spike of energy. And at that time, we get Sinister. And Jubilee, goes in, tries to fight back. Professor... This was a theme in the latter, seasons. Not only does he get dumped out of his chair, now the chair is just straight up getting destroyed.
Yeah, a lot of times.
I actually give Jubilee credit, though. She fucked up his shoulder a little bit when she starts fighting him.
Well, that was the thing that I was confused about, was her fireworks cause the same amount of damage that Cyclops' beams do, but Sinister was like, ha ha ha, that doesn't hurt me, even though the animation was the same.
I think it's the recovery aspect of it, though. Because with Cyclops, it took a while for it to start reforming itself. Versus if he's just gelatin, it just kind of sucks back in kind of scenario.
Okay. All right. Well, sucks for Jubilee.
Yeah, because then she immediately gets shot.
Yeah. And so this is where I think, I feel like one of the Nasty Boys said this, or not the Nasty Boys, one of the X-Men said this, was the Nasty Boys took Jean and Scott to another area to draw them away from the mansion so that they could do this move on Xavier.
That makes sense.
Yeah, and that's where Sinister does grab Xavier. Jump back to Bishop. That was actually a pretty solid way of giving the transition with the characters and stuff like that, of oh, well, do we really care about Sinister just dragging Chuck around the mansion right now to escape? He's asking, why are we seeing this? Is this happening now? Which, from a time travel perspective, is a really confusing sentence, because then it's the Dr. Manhattan shit is everything's happening at once when you're in an instance like this, right?
I mean...
let's talk metaphysics.
Yeah.
That was kind of the same question I had.
I feel like it was probably just to help clarify...
Yeah,
for children.
Yeah, well, same thing with Ben.
I want to dive deeper than that.
I think you might be a little overthinking this. But I will say one thing that's always been impressive about these time travel episodes is they really do have a good sense of logic. They always made sense to me.
They have rules and they stick to the rules with time travel in this.
Which is actually really impressive for a kid show.
Yeah.
I mean, dude, there's modern pop culture stuff made for adults that doesn't even do that at this point.
There's modern X-Men stuff that doesn't do that.
100%.
Yep.
But I think that even Bender's character, when he said he'd been there for 10,000 years, I was I didn't notice that as a kid, but now that we've had so much multiversal time travel stuff, he's been in a place without time for 10,000. Okay, sure.
I mean,
yeah.
Well, even if there's not time passing that will age him, time still happens. He's still experiencing those moments.
I think that's just a quick way, though, to explain it to kids without getting into, you said, the metaphysics.
Yeah.
Of
it doesn't go into the explanation.
Forever.
Yeah. What was it, Interstellar? Was that the one where it was we sent these people to this planet years ago, and it only had been 12 minutes or something like that?
Right. Lightyear, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So we get another little...
Lightyear.
So did I.
I think we might be the only two, Rod.
I haven't watched it yet, so I have no feelings on it.
I just think it's different than what you might expect from that. So it's probably more a marketing branding thing.
It had some pretty deep sci-fi ideas in it, which I actually really kind of appreciate.
It was animated Interstellar.
Okay.
Yeah. Basically.
Cool.
Yeah.
We get a mini fight between Bishop and Bender, and basically establishes, there's no way for you to leave.
Because he's I've been stuck here for 10,000 years.
And at that point, if your only buddy there is this guy, you're probably going to try to figure out how to shoot yourself.
I was just going to say, he's got that big gun.
But the problem is his own mutant power prevents that gun from killing him.
That's a good point.
He would have to literally bludgeon himself to death.
We've talked about...
It's a rough way to go.
Right?
I guess you're stuck with Bender.
We've talked about in the animated series what hell may be. I think we found it.
No.
Yeah.
Jumps over back to Forge in Bishop's timeline. They're talking about how Bishop could basically be anywhere, but they trace him to the late 90s, which I was well, wait, how is he in the late 90s? And that's where I think, to your point, it's just we can't talk about the metaphysics of it. That would just be too confusing. But they send Shard back, who pops up perfectly right in front of Sinister. They have a quick fight because Sinister doesn't know who this is.
Nope.
No, this is their first experience.
Yep.
Sinister retreats back into the mansion. Everybody starts to return, and they end up back in the chapel. And that's where, to your point, they call for George for help.
Yes, George. Good old George. Hey, George.
Well, what are you going to say? Hey, gorgeous George? Gorgeous?
Yeah, because then I know who they're talking about.
Well, you missed other episodes where I yelled at Rod about not knowing who Gorgeous George was.
Well, I mean, I know who Gorgeous George is. I know who Gorgeous George the character is and the wrestler. Right?
I know.
But when I just hear, hey, George... I don't know. It sounds very...
No, not of the jungle. So the Nasty Boys do teleport in, and then there's really slow, choppy animation at this point because of anytime they do the visual effects of people screaming. There's like the motion lines from like Vertigo yelling and stuff like that. That tends to be where the frame rate just drops to like, 6 frames a second. For
There's
some
like
reason.
so much else going on. It's like the economics of animating or something.
Yeah.
I also liked here how the dialogue has small like reminder. Jubilee saw Shard and was like, "Who are you?" I'm like, "Oh yeah, they haven't met yet."
Right.
Yeah. Shard hasn't met anybody except for alternate present Wolverine and Storm.
Oh man, that's a story for those guys to hang out and have dinner. It's like, so I met a version of you guys
And you banged.
a lot and weren't quiet about it.
They weren't quiet about it.
Well, because they were
You
just.
were the noisiest.
Well, I just mean they were, even just with Shard, they had like super PDA. Even though the world was ending,
Right. Yes. I remember I heard on that.
or time was
episode.
ending.
Yes.
And then my favorite moment of the fight is Wolverine stops Ruckus, the guy who screams, with cake.
Yeah, my note was Wolverine Steve Aoki's them.
So the Nasty Boys start to get taken out, and George is like, Xavier was your job, we're out, and they just abandon Sinister.
Which is super interesting.
Yeah, because he was their leader, and now it's just kind of like, not necessarily scared of you at this point, because if I'm going to leave you behind...
Might have a bigger boss now.
I mean, we could spoil shit in the episode itself, so I'm not worried about that. Then this was the only disconnect for me from a writing perspective. Beast somehow knows that Sinister is messing around with time travel.
Yeah, that was a really great, like, not just like moving through space.
Yeah,
It was,
not
like,
teleportation.
Specifically time travel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they also even include it in next episode's recap of this one, of
Yes.
that line too.
Yeah. Feels like another cheat, but
And it was one of those like leaps that like it was two extremes, because before when Jean first got taken, they were like,
Yeah.
I can't smell where they went. Where'd they go? They didn't even occur to them, maybe portholes and everything they've been through. And then now
Did you
with
say
Beast-
portholes instead of portals?
Portals? Sure, yeah.
I think he did. Good calling that.
But then here they just leap to like, oh yes, it must be time travel. There's a TARDIS and everything. Like,
Right.
So Scott is screaming, "Where's my wife?" Because that's what Scott does.
because they're married now, because there was a minister.
Finally happened.
And then Sinister goes weirdly poetic for him, which does end up happening in later iterations of the character in the comics. But at this point, Sinister is like big bad pointy teeth evil, and he
Yeah.
says, "A broken blossom fluttering through time, follow if you want to find her." And he starts to step through another portal. When he does that, Rogue zooms in, grabs Professor, and then Wolverine and Cyclops drop kick the portal.
Naturally.
Yeah.
Why not?
What I have a question. The Beast line comes before Sinister says that?
Yes.
Boy, that would have made more sense if they had flipped those lines.
Nope.
Anyway, I mean, I assume they were drop kicking the portal. I think they were trying to jump into the portal.
I totally agree. But the way that the animation worked, they like how in wrestling you stop the motion once you hit it, so their feet hit it and then they kind of like fall down. They don't like do the sliding dive where they miss it and they keep going forward.
Right.
Yes.
Fair.
Yeah.
Okay.
But it literally just looks like classic. If there was like Mighty Muscle or something like that back in like the 80s, that would be the animation of a drop kick.
Okay.
Cyclops still yelling, and Shard reveals that, Jean is in the place that you can't get to another time. Again, show me how to get there. Flash over to Jean, who is, I thought it was a force field at first, but it's a tube.
I said electric bubble wrap. That's what it looked like.
Yep.
It's like a test tube. That's what I always thought.
Well, no, the effect at the very beginning before it zoomed out to the test tube, there was like the sheen over her. Bubble wrap? Like,
Yep. And at the time, you see there are 7-ish tubes. In the later episodes, that number keeps changing and expanding. But I was like, wait, what's the number on this one? Because there is a story about the reveal we're going to see of Apocalypse of...
Spoilers.
Yes, literally the next line on my notes. In the comics, there is a story called The 12.
okay.
It would happen in the 2000s, that story. And it was literally abduction of 12 powerful mutants to do a thing.
Gotcha.
I don't want to go too far into it, but I was like, wait, I couldn't remember if that story had taken place before this was written, but this is one of the instances where I do think that the comics got some inspiration from this story for what would happen later in them.
They're like, that worked well. Let's try.
Yeah.
So who is the reveal?
I mean, I literally said Apocalypse, so. Yep. But we get the big bad cliffhanger, and This all happened during the month of November of 1995. So this was like every episode of the X-Men was this story at that time. So,
You know, as a kid, we were watching for the first time. You're like, oh, okay. So that's why like the Nasty Boys weren't loyal to Sinister and all that stuff. Like, and then it left you on a cliffhanger for a week.
right.
What a time to be alive.
We have hit the end of the episode. Some just quick notes and trivia, and then anybody else who wants to toss some stuff in. The license plate on the car said Slim, which is often Cyclops' nickname.
Oh, that's very clever.
Other Joe said that, and I forgot.
What, his nickname is Slim?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, of course. it's his nickname.
Because he said he loves Cyclops and he was trying to defend him on here. Like, oh no, we're not like a pro Cyclops.
I mean, to be fair, though, if you don't really understand the context of the title of your podcast, you might think it is a pro.
Yeah, it could be seen as pro. This was...
He's slim. He's not. He wasn't muscular at the beginning. He grew to be very muscular.
Yeah, in the show, he's already built out, but he was like skinny, awkward kid when he joined. This is the first episode of all of season 4 where every character from the X-Men has a speaking role.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
Huh.
Yep, and nobody was in their traditional costumes during the entire episode as well.
I didn't even notice that.
Yep, they were all in their wedding gear.
Wow. You're right.
Because the defenses are down. No one's going to attack.
That's right.
Yep.
Yes, naturally.
So that is all the notes that I have for it.
This was just a setup, you know, because we were talking before we were recording. This was basically like a movie, the 4 parts together. And so I think this was just
Everybody's
this
favorite
is the first act.
Everybody's favorite 4-act structure.
Right.
Well, to be fair, if you are, talking about movie structures, and that's something that
What do you know about movies?
know a little bit about. Your first act 2 is usually kind of 2 parts. You have like a mid that divides act 2. So in theory, there kind of are 4 parts to it. So, well, I look forward to the first half of Act 2 next week when we come back and do this again.
On Afterwards on X-Men. We should name the podcast that instead of previously on.
I think we decided not to do that because of SEO or something like that.
Oh, gotcha.
Because there's something else that's called previously
I think there was something that came up when we were searching.
Got it.
And also, we were always going to be overtaken by the book.
You should have been like 30 years later on X-Men.
But it wasn't actually 30 years when we did it.
But it is now. You started too late or too early.
But then, we have time in between and we're going to have to go to all these other series.
The great news is you guys are going to be ready to go whenever this new series starts.
In 2027.
And you got all the TikTokers following you, so it'll be great.
Yeah, Rod will say stuff. They'll fight us. It'll be perfect.
That's great. So, yeah, I guess you were just watching this whole setup. It set up a pretty good mystery for me, at least, because I didn't remember a whole lot from this episode.
# goldfish.
Yeah, I genuinely forgot that this was an apocalypse story until like the later part of this episode.
That's fair because I do all the Joe referenced the producer role, so I'm looking at what characters are involved and stuff because we have a few guests that we're trying to line up for remaining episodes, and they're like, "Oh, I would love to do a episode with a strong female lead." So I have to go through the episodes and like, "All right, cool. Who has Storm? Who has Rogue, etc."
Yeah. I wanted Apocalypse, so here I am.
Yep, which is perfect because I'm pretty sure for at least the run of the original X-Men '92. This is the last series of episodes with Apocalypse featured.
Though I did do a little look into season 5, and I think there is one more.
Sorry, there is one more. One more. Sorry, it's other characters that is their final episode. Yes. So thank you guys for joining us. And if you have any thoughts, make sure to drop them to the comments of either the YouTube upload, the official Instagram post about this episode, or Fight with Rod, who manages the TikTok. If you liked what you heard, we appreciate a rating on the podcast app of your choosing. Find us on Apple Podcasts, Anchor, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and CastBox. And I pray to God that the recording software hasn't fucked us yet.
It looks like it's working. We're about to find out when I hit stop.
Hooray!